Today's video is going to be a recap of the year that I started Covenant Cards as a business. But for you guys to get a full understanding of 2025 and how it played out, we kind of actually have to go back to 2024. So in March of 2024, I left my job in the financial planning industry. I was a portfolio manager managing about 125 million of assets under management. And I left in order to pursue a hobby as a career. I had an opportunity to buy into a business, an existing card shop and online breaker, but part of the conditions were that I had to work there just as an employee for 1 to 2 years before ownership would be offered. After quite a few weeks of negotiating and talking with that guy, he made me feel comfortable enough to leave my career, join a new company. I actually took a pretty massive pay cut to work for him with the promise of business ownership in the future. For the first few months, everything felt awesome. You know, like most of the time you start a new job, a new career, you kind of have that honeymoon period where everything's good. You don't think anything's wrong. You feel good about where you're at, and you kind of are blind to the problems that are existing. Fast forward to 2025, I started to really realize that it was a business that I did not want to be associated with long term. Promises that were made were not kept. I started to think I need to start looking back at the finance world. I need to go back to what I had done for over a decade and been very good at it. So I started kind of quietly looking around for jobs. Honestly, I took too long to start doing it. I was unsatisfied, dissatisfied, upset, irritated. Throw in your descriptive word for far too many months before I actually started considering a new job. Because in my mind, I wanted to make the card industry work. The company I worked for was mostly sports cards, but we did dabble in TCG a little bit, mostly Pokemon. Eventually, it got to a point where, like I said, I realized it just wasn't a fit. We'll just say that. It wasn't a fit. Promises were made and weren't kept. So started looking for a job, and luckily I did, because about, I don't know, probably 2 or 3 weeks after I started looking around and happened to have an opportunity to go back to the same company I was at previously, I was informed by the owner that I essentially was going to be forced to take about a 40 to 50% pay cut if I wanted to continue working for him. And I basically told him that wasn't going to happen. So we agreed that 2 weeks later I would be leaving the company, which was the last day of June. Just have it be a clean last day of a payroll period, and then I would be gone. I kind of went too far into that story, and now I have to rewind to get into the Covenant Cards. So why start a business? I've always wanted to start a business. I always felt the need to provide a steady paycheck. Didn't feel like I could take a risk and start a business, because I don't know why in my mind starting a business meant you had to do it full time. But I've always wanted to be a business owner, but I always had side hustle jobs, eBay, Amazon FBA, flipping cards, just, doing things in my hobbies to try to help support the cost of my hobbies. Eventually I did Whatnot on my own as a breaker for a while. I did pretty well, but it wasn't something that I wanted to keep doing as my own business. Which was funny, because that is what I had to give up doing to join the shop that I joined. He essentially said, hey, you're breaking on your own, you're doing well on your own, why don't you come work with me, let's work together. So that's what led partly to me going to work for this card shop. Is I was already doing breaking on my own. I was already doing well on my own, and I wanted to make it a career in the card world. I just didn't want to be a breaker forever. I wanted to be the business owner, the one running the business. Eventually, early 2025, started feeling frustration, as I already explained, but I didn't want to leave the card industry, and I was really starting to enjoy Pokemon again. Like a lot of people, I collected cards when it first came to the United States in the late 90s. I had quite a few decent cards that I wish I had hung on to, but when I got to high school, it was like, oh, that's a kid's game. I don't want to do that anymore, so got rid of my cards. My favorite card I had was the Gyarados Holo. I also had a Mewtwo Holo, both in really good condition. If I had held on to those, they wouldn't be 10s, but they'd be highly graded. And that's one thing I wish I hadn't gotten rid of. Anyways, just was watching YouTube one day, looking at videos, scrolling through my home page, looking for something to watch. And I wasn't looking for business anything. I was just looking for entertainment. But I saw a video by Pokémon. Shout out Pokémon. You are the reason that I created my company. If I hadn't found your videos, I wouldn't have had the confidence to get started and make it an actual real business, even being part-time, even working my normal job still full-time. Like, I wouldn't have pulled that trigger if it weren't for your videos showing that it can be done, and how you explain that, hey, I did it part-time to start. I had a full-time job still. So thank you, Pokémon, for posting your content. You do awesome work, and I bet you there are countless people who have mustered up the courage or confidence to take that first step because of the straightforward information you provide, and I really appreciate it. Anyways, I have reached out to you before, but you didn't reply to my message, so maybe I'll try again just to say thank you. But going back to 2025, the start of my frustration with work, finding the Pokémon videos, getting the confidence, I guess, that I can do this. This would be fun. This is a way for me to keep doing cards and not have to worry about a steady income, because it's just going to be extra. And it's going to be starting to build my business, my baby that I can have long term. Early March of 2025, I don't remember the exact date, but it was early March. Started talking to my wife about it. We both got excited about it. Worked on a business logo together. I bought a domain and started creating a website. And we came up with our name together. And it's obviously, Covenant Cards. Our faith is important to us. And that was the name that resonated with us the most, that we felt like was a long-term name we could keep. And I was really bummed when I tried to find the website, and there was no website. Nobody had covenantcards.com active, so I was excited. I went to purchase the domain and found out that someone has owned that domain since 2017, but it had been an inactive website since like 2019 or 2020 or something like that. But they kept the domain. They just kept paying for it even though it was an inactive domain. I know Pokémon kept saying, don't use a .shop website. Don't use a .shop website. Find a name that works with a .com website. But the name was so important to my wife and I that we decided, let's go forward with the .shop. We're going to make it work, and then maybe in the future the .com domain will become available, then we can claim it and shift stuff over. And that's still kind of the goal that I would love to have, but as of now, that's not happening. So I got the website. My wife actually came up with the design. We kind of both were working on ideas, and we settled on the one she came up with. We both really liked it. So that's where our logos came from, using Canva. I set up a business email. I did listen to Pokémon, and I bought a business email, so it's michael@covenantcards.shop to match my business, so it's not a Gmail. It doesn't say Michael or covenantcards@gmail or anything like that. It's very professional to have your business as your email, so got that. Started testing suppliers in Japan using all of the tips that Pokémon gives. Used Instagram, Facebook, any social media platform I could think of. I was just messaging. I probably messaged 500 people trying to feel people out and figure out who I wanted to start ordering from as tests. And I've always wondered if any of the ones I settled on are the ones Pokémon has, but no idea if they're the same ones or not. I've got about 3 different people that I order from fairly regularly. One of them more than the other 2. But I narrowed down my list of people I contacted from like 500 to 20, and I've only ordered from probably about 10 of them because I started to feel out the ones that I did purchase from and started to really like some of them. So I just kept going back to those ones. Though there are some other ones out there I'm sure that would be just as good. I just felt like I didn't need to keep looking because I found ones that were looking good. Actually, before I go further, I'm going to pull up my website. This is what it looks like now. I still don't like the look of it as a finished product. I built the whole thing myself. I am by no means a web designer. It's very crude, but it gets the job done. And eventually I would love to have a professional redo it and make it actually look good, better. Keep our logo, but redesign the rest of it and just kind of optimize it for what we've got going on. But if anyone watching here is a web designer and you're willing to either consult or work on that, let me know. Reach out to me and send me an email, michael@covenantcards.shop, and we can figure something out. But from there, started posting on social media. My very first social media post with my Covenant Cards pages was on March 12th. And my first order from Japan came on March 13th from the first person I tested from. I made a huge mistake. I did exactly what Pokémon says not to do. I personally didn't see him say it in a video before I did this, but I have seen him say it since. I just ordered way too much of one product. Battle Partners was, I think it was fairly soon after it released was when I placed my first order. It was horrible timing. I bought a bunch of them, and within a few days after I bought them, the price started coming down because I just kind of jumped into this thing without watching what happens in the Japanese market and didn't realize how quickly the box prices drop when they first release. For me, it was way too many boxes. It was 20 boxes. At that point in time, I didn't really have a whole lot of money to be able to order 20 boxes, but I thought, I'm going to buy 20 boxes and I'm going to sell them quick and then I'm going to buy more. And what happened was I didn't sell them quick, and I ended up going to Chicago for a show for the card shop, and I got this tiny little section of our 3 tables that we rented out to put my boxes out, and I was able to sell like 5 of them at the Chicago show, but I still had a lot left. And I bought way too many of those. I eventually sold them. Lesson learned is I should have spread it out amongst different types. Buy 2 or 3 of 7 to 10 different scents, buy 2 of 3 instead of 20 of one. March 17th, my website officially went live, which is, I think, just before the Chicago show happened, if I remember right. And 2 days later, on my second order from Japan, which at the time was $2,800, was my second order. The first order for the Battle Partners was less than that. I know that. I don't remember the exact number, but I do remember the second order was a little under $3,000. Ordered it on the 10th of March. Filled out the paperwork on the 12th. Once it got to the U.S., you have to, at the time, had to fill out importing paperwork. and I filled that out right away. Tracking updated, said it was on its way out of Memphis, and then there was just zero updates. And on the 19th, 9 days after I placed the order, a week after I submitted my customs paperwork, I called FedEx and I was like, what's going on? Where's my package? It says it left Memphis. There's been no updates. And they pretty much told me on the phone, we have no idea where your package is. They ended up having to do some digging. After a bunch of back and forth, they basically said, hey, customs approved this release after reviewing your forms, but they forgot to actually release the box to the drivers at FedEx. So customs had it, they approved it, but it just sat there. So why the tracking updated and said it left Memphis, I have no idea, but it did. And package finally showed up on the 21st. But for about maybe a day or two, I thought that package was gone, and I thought my business is toast before it even really began, because $2,800 is out the door, and I'm not going to get it back, and I'm never going to be able to financially recover from this, or whatever that meme is. It was not a good feeling to start, but it was a learning lesson again, and in the end, it all worked out. So after that, on the 19th of March, met with an attorney, got the LLC formed. As soon as he got me the tax ID number, that same day I opened up a business checking account. And then 2 days later, March 21st, was the very first sale I ever had on my website. I want to say about $140. I didn't post content because I wanted it to be an organic person who just picked my website. But I had some prismatic blister packs that I was setting aside, that whoever placed the first order on my website, they'd get a free 3-pack blister pack of prismatic. I was so excited to send that first order out, and I was like, it started, baby. Website went live on the 17th. It took 4 days to get my first sale, but now we're gonna roll. We'll get into some numbers a little later, but it actually ended up going much better than I thought it would after the slow start. But on the 24th, I realized I got some pretty pitiful shelves in here. This was all studs. There was no drywall. There was nothing. Our basement is unfinished. But in the storage area where my shop, we'll call it, is set up, I decided, hey, let's get some drywall. Let's set it up. Let's separate it from the rest of the basement and really make it feel like more of a usable space, and not just setting up. Like, this wall behind me would have been open studs, so like it would have been weird having shelves behind me. And then for videos, even though the drywall's not mudded, it's not painted or nothing, like that looks way better than having open studs behind me. And quite frankly, that wall behind me is a future bathroom that is currently a storage room, so it just wouldn't make for good content background. And I knew from Pokémon stuff I wanted to make content as quickly as possible. So I wanted to set it up so even though it's not high quality, at least it looks a little bit more presentable. Got that done. Ordered this shelf and one just like it to replace the pitiful shelves that I had. And again, I felt like, hey, we're going to make it, man. We got official shelves. We got drywall up. We got an official business area set up. This is going to be awesome. And it was. It was a lot of fun. And it was a good start. And then a few days later, on April 4th, was another milestone for me. It was the first day that I had multiple orders from returning customers. So I posted a video recently where I said, to me, the greatest compliment is when someone places their first order and within a couple days after receiving it in the mail, they come back to the website and they order again. So for me, that was almost like a euphoric feeling that on April 4th, I had 2 recent first-time buyers come back and order again on the same day. And it was awesome. I loved it. 2 days after that, I got my first order. That was $1,000 or more. I think it was a $1,200 order. And again, that was another moment where I'm like, this is real. Like, this is gonna work. At this point, we were only about we were almost 3 weeks in, and I was super excited. The next day after that, there's an LGS that didn't carry Japanese Pokemon before, and I contacted the owner of the shop and I asked him, hey, if I supply you with Japanese Pokemon, will you carry it? And he agreed. So on the 7th, he placed an order with me, and he has come back many times over since then. He is one of my most regular buyers, stocking his LGS. He's got actually 2 LGSs that he owns within a 30-mile radius, 30-minute drive, I should say. So he stocks both of those stores, Japanese products from me, and that was awesome. It felt really good being able to get an LGS to essentially use me as their distributor. So I don't make very much on his sales, but it's steady. Very regular orders, very consistent. He makes big purchases, and he's actually a friend as well. So that's partly why it worked out with him, is we already had a relationship. He already trusted me, and he continues to buy from me. After that, it was April 11th. I started getting really, really frustrated with Wix because every single sale to this point, outside of to the LGS, they were holding my funds. So I want to say it was almost $5,000 worth of sales that they were just sitting on, that I was like, I need this money back. I want to order more product. I had used personal funds to get this business started, so I wanted to pay it back essentially. And I had to go through a very rigorous vetting process after I had already done a rigorous vetting process. And my biggest frustration was they wanted proof that I had shipped out all of my orders, but I had purchased all of my shipping through them. So I had to literally take screenshots of their own website showing that I purchased shipping from them, and it was just really frustrating to me. But eventually, shortly after that, they released my funds. I started being able to order more product again. Another about week after that, on April 17th, I hit $10,000 in sales. So literally exactly 1 month after my website was live, I hit 10,000 in sales. And it was an awesome feeling being able to say in my very first month of being live that I hit 10,000 in revenue. About a week after that, my son Milo, who, if you guys watch any of our content, you may have seen him, he decided he wanted to make what he calls his MVPs. They're Milo variety packs. I often call them bundles, but he calls them MVPs. And essentially what he does is he controls the whole thing, man. Right back here, I've got a bunch of boxes that are open. Those are for creating packs, selling singles, things like that. He goes over to that shelf and he picks the products he wants involved in his variety packs. And he usually picks 10 boxes and creates his variety packs, and they sell out. And actually right now, if you want to support him, every MVP that we sell, he gets a portion of that sale. It goes to him directly, not the business. Well, it goes to the business and then the business pays him. But he gets a portion of every sale because he's saving up for the Lego Titanic. So if you guys want to help him save up money to buy that Lego Titanic, go buy some MVPs. He's about 2/3 of the way there to saving up for that Lego set. I don't know if you guys know anything about it. It's a $680 set, and it's overdue to be retired. So his mom and I bought it, but he's not allowed to open it until he saves up and buys it from us. So it's sitting upstairs, and he's got to stare at it every single day. And it's been a really good lesson for him on working hard for something you want that's expensive. And he's doing jobs around the house. He's doing jobs for grandma and grandpa. He's doing jobs for neighbors to earn money. And it's really cool to see him learning the value of hard work at a young age. He's only 8 years old. Anyways, moving on. On May 6th, so about 3 weeks after I hit 10,000 in sales, I hit 20,000 in sales. So you can see it starts to accelerate a little bit. We hit the first 10,000 in 4 weeks. We hit the next 10,000 in 3 weeks. And then 3 weeks after that, we hit the next 10,000. So we're up to 30,000 total in sales. And 2 weeks after that, halfway through June, was when I decided it's time to leave the card shop breaker job. And I found a job back in financial planning at, again, like I said, same company I was at before, just on a different advisor team. And that was a very big turning point for the year of 2025 for the business, and we'll get into that shortly. But a couple days later, after that happened, we hit 40,000 in sales. So it took us 4 weeks to get 10,000, 3 weeks to get the next 10, 3 weeks to get the next 10, and 3 weeks to get the next 10 after that. Actually, it was about 2 weeks for that last 10,000 increase now that I look at it again. So on the 30th of May, we hit 30,000, and then on the 18th, I guess that was about 3 weeks, we hit 40,000. And I had the entire month of July off of work. Late June, early July, I knew that I was getting the job at my old company with the new team. And what I should have done in that time is take that month off to really dive into the business, create social media content like crazy, and really drive the business forward. But what it ended up being was a month-long vacation because I knew I had the new job coming, going back to a higher income, and I felt like I just needed time to recover, we'll say, from the previous year and a half almost of working in a job that ended up becoming very toxic and mentally draining on me. So I regret not using that month to really push the business forward, but I think mentally for me it was needed to get myself in a place where I was ready to go back to work in finance and do a good job. And on August 1st, started that new job. And again, getting back into finance, kind of getting back up to speed after being out of the world for about a year and a half, a little less than a year and a half. And being on a new team and leading into year end, which I don't know if many of you know about the financial world, but you know, for the last quarter of the year, it gets very busy with tax planning. It's almost all related to tax planning essentially, but there's a lot of stuff that you got to do during the calendar year, and there's a lot of stuff you can do after the year rolls over and backdate it, but there's more things that you have to do in the calendar year. So being in a new job, going into the year end stuff, I pretty much just completely stopped, not pretty much, I completely stopped posting social media content, and the business really slowed down from there. And after hitting $40,000 in sales in 3 months, almost to the day, 3 months from the time that I started my business, the last 6 months, 5.5 months of the year, I only did 18,000 more in sales. So I bring this up mostly because it drives home the point that Pokémon says so often, that social media content is the most important part of running a TCG business, and my numbers show it. So whether you like the guy or not, he knows what he's talking about. I know he can rub people the wrong way because he's very blunt, he's very matter of fact, and he doesn't care whose feelings he's hurt, but the guy knows what he's talking about. So one day I would love to be in a place where his shop is. I know I've got a long ways to get there, but just keep doing the little things every day. Keep doing social media. Keep being honest, having integrity in your business, giving people the confidence to come back. what a lot of people who are dishonest don't realize when they're trying to build a business is they think, oh, I can just sell these individual packs and search through them and pull out the hits, and I'll sell the hits myself. And you got to remember, like, if you want your business to be successful, yeah, you're always going to be able to get new customers, but you need those loyal customers who come back, who have a good experience with you, who find hits and think, that was awesome. I'm going to go back and buy from them because I know I can trust them. That's a very important thing to me, is always providing a service that has integrity and is a place that my buyers feel like very confident that they're getting the best product they can possibly get at the best price I can afford to sell it at. And they never have to worry about if the packs they're buying are searched or not. Most of my sales are sealed boxes, so those customers don't have to worry about that. But I'm starting to get more and more of these packs that sell in my bundles or individually, and I think it's because people are starting to realize that, hey, I'm getting hits out of these. These are packs that aren't searched. These are packs that I can trust, that I can spend less money than a full box would cost. I could still go buy some packs and have great odds still of getting hits. Kind of a long rambling story that didn't have anything to do with how the year was, but I just kind of wanted to talk through it because it's a very important thing to me and my business. So we got through the end of, going back to the timeline, we got back to the end of the year of tax season, and I started to really get that motivation, that drive to get back to the content, get posting again. And I decided 2026 is going to be the year that's better than the first half of 2025 went for the first 3 months of my business. We're gonna push hard this year. We're gonna work the best we can to get content out every single day. We're gonna post videos on YouTube, Instagram, and do the best we can to continue growing our sales, growing trust, growing return buyers. And eventually the end goal is, let's get a distributor. Let's get at least one, preferably multiple distributors one day. So as part of the revamp and really wanting to drive into the business full throttle again this year, I decided it was time to upgrade my shipping station, upgrade my storage. My storage was starting to get full. My shipping station was not good. It was a tiny little, like 3 foot wide by 18 inches deep shelf that had holes all in it. So it wasn't even like a perfectly flat surface that I was trying to ship on. So used some proceeds from the sales for the year and bought a nice 8 foot long shipping table, another shelving unit, got everything spread out. So now it looks like I don't have much back here at all, but it's because I bought a whole nother shelving unit and now I got to fill it. Anyways, I know this was a long and kind of rambly video, but really appreciate it. If you guys stuck around this long, it means a lot to me. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. And we're going to do a promo like I've been doing on a few of these videos I've posted. If you use the code 2025 RECAP on your next order at covenantcards.shop, you'll get $5 off your order. And just as a reminder, guys, we've got a loyalty rewards program. So when you order, make sure you create an account, sign up, and you will start earning rewards for every purchase you make, and every friend that you refer to the website. You're going to earn enough rewards to be the equivalent of a $5 discount. Check out our website, covenantcards.shop, and we're going to have a good year ahead in 2026. We'll see you guys next time. God bless.